This week on Head to Head, has the prophecy been fulfilled?
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So you, sir, have some Daisy Ridley news.
Yeah, man. Daisy Ridley's been in the news quite heavily, actually. She's been popping up all over the place, having interviews with different people. And, I kind of found this thing about her talking about the fans being upset about The Last Jedi. And she understands why, some fans are upset about it.
Well, what'd she say exactly?
Well, she basically was saying that, if you hold something near and dear to your heart like that, and you feel that, the properties that be are not giving you what you believe that it should, what the franchise should portray, then you should be upset. I mean, she kind of tries to defend Rian Johnson a little bit like he's only one cog in the wheel in the sense of,
yeah, like you can't put the whole
thing going on with him because it's like, granted, I know they allowed him to write it, but I mean, everybody had to green light it, so from Kathleen Kennedy to Pablo Hidalgo to, what's the other one's name?
The other what?
Executive over at Disney.
Bob Iger?
Bob Iger, thank you.
Yeah. Only the head of the whole company.
Right, thank you.
Who's he again?
Right, who's that Steve Jobs guy?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And Bob Iger. So, and everybody, and of course, all the other shareholders and everybody, they all ranted and raved that they loved it.
That's exactly it. It's right.
So, yeah, I mean, I just think that, you can't completely put this on Ryan, but she does understand that, as fans, as hardcore fans, if you feel like, much like if you don't feel like the country is being run right, you should write to your senators and everybody like that, like, hey, you're screwing with our stuff. So,
and that is the one thing. I mean, even though on a previous podcast, we did talk about how the whole, the fan divisiveness has gotten a little out of hand, whatever. It is good in a way that, and it's nice that, we all have the Twitter accounts of Rian Johnson. Now, granted, we shouldn't be giving him death threats, and,
right.
Just like attacking him personally and all that. But I mean, if you want to do that or write to Disney or whatever and just basically be vocal in the way that most fans are and just say, hey, listen, this is not okay. This is not the direction we want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is a good argument, but sometimes it could also be considered a weak argument, is the fact that, like, look, they'll say, well, it's the story. It's being driven by the story. But the story could be anything that they want. If they wanted to come in and, Luke at the end of the movie comes out, green lightsaber, ignited, and he comes out blazing, and he's the Luke that we know and love from Return of the Jedi, just older, which is pretty much what I think the fans had the biggest problem with.
Yeah.
What Mark Hamill himself actually had the biggest problem with, and that was how they, Luke, basically how he was presented in the movie and the direction. And, even Mark Hamill himself said, look, he wouldn't have turned away from the Force like that and all that. Now, of course, you and I thought that was actually intriguing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if enough fans get together and say, listen, this is not the direction we want this franchise to go, then yeah, I mean, the executives are like, look, you're ultimately making these movies for us.
You're right.
If you want to make money, you're going to give the fans what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that you should let the fans dictate every creative decision.
Right. And that's why I think we always talk about, like, certain beats. Like, okay, as long as the movies have this common thread or these certain beats in there, like, okay, don't screw too much with this. And then whatever you build around that.
Yeah,
okay,
like a parameter kind of thing. Like, okay, here's the sandbox. You can do whatever you want in it, but don't go outside of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what else? Well, I know I did read that she was also talking about how we will find out, who Rey's parents were by the end of the movie, which is good.
Yeah. And they, in The Last Jedi, it was basically said that, her parents were like filthy drunk traders who sold her off for drinking money.
Right.
And so now, they're saying that, okay, there's more to that story. So maybe Kylo was only kind of doing that whole from a certain point of view type thing.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't really get the feeling that he was lying to her.
Yeah, but there may be more that he might not even know.
Yeah, he doesn't know himself, or that might be part of it, but there's like more to it, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad that's going to kind of, at least fans know that that's going to be answered.
Let's drown our sorrows, over a drink at the Cantina. Last Jedi will cause that. What do we got? What do we got first in the Cantina?
All right, well, Rise of Skywalker being edited on the set. Now, you and I, are in the production world, so not in the film production per se, but just...
Well, I mean, it's like almost what's the difference?
I know, right? Yeah, in this day and age. But, the Rise of Skywalker was basically edited on set, which is something that hasn't been done really in any of the Star Wars movies. Even J.J. Abrams wasn't really exactly enthused about doing it that way, but because of the tight shooting schedules and everything that they had going on, in I guess the amount of content that they needed to shoot, they felt it was necessary to actually kind of edit the film on set as it goes. So what do you think from that standpoint?
I don't necessarily think that that's an entirely bad thing, because honestly, I think if they had done that with The Last Jedi, I mean, I hate to keep beating that dead horse, but if they had done that, they might have seen like, you know what, this isn't really working, because what that did when they started to edit this movie on the set was it caused them to go, you know what? No, we need to go in a different direction. Let's reshoot this or that. And you have everybody there. You could do it. It's not like you even have to do reshoots, 8 months later or whatever it is, because that's what happens. Now, every film, as we know, actually builds that into their schedule. But those decisions are made in the editing room. They either need some extra scenes to tie some threads together, or they look at a scene and go, you know what? It's just not working as it was shot. We need to reshoot this. Now,
do you think that that's going to allow them to truly get it right? Like, because, they're wrapping up everything.
Yeah, but I think they were going to get it right anyway.
Okay.
Just because, I don't know. I have a feeling that with everything at stake, with everything that happened in The Last Jedi, I think the executives, I also think that JJ, because remember, he started the trilogy. He started the story. And even he probably didn't like every little thing that Rian Johnson did. Or maybe there were some things that, it wasn't necessarily that he didn't like it, but there were certain things that weren't resolved or dealt with or whatever, that he was like, well, hey, I want to go and revisit this. So yeah. I think that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the idea, the concept of them actually editing on set, just because, like you say, you kind of get a vibe of how the flow of the story is going. I think that's really the biggest thing is, is everything flowing correctly? And then, yeah, if you do see some like, okay, this is not giving us the impact that we want.
Yeah, you can address whatever issue it is. You can address it right then and there. I mean, there are certain things that maybe like certain issues that could cause too. But I think that the benefits far outweigh the caveats in that situation.
Yeah.
Now, what about you guys? We always ask that after we talk about anything. Let us know what you guys think at Head to Head SW on Facebook or Twitter, or leave a really particularly descriptive picture on Instagram. And we'll try to see, where that goes. Always love the Instagram pictures that you guys send.
All right.
Yeah, what's next?
So,
hey, speaking of Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley's back again.
Yeah, see, she comes up in our thing now.
So Daisy Ridley has been on The Tonight Show, and
now, I missed that one.
Yeah, she was on there with Jimmy Fallon, and she, there's a bunch of different projects that she has coming up. So, of course, they were going to talk about that. But, of course, you can't get up there and not talk about Star Wars a little bit.
If you're involved in Star Wars, you better just be prepared. That's what people are going to ask you.
Yeah. So, of course, they asked, what is she, they know she can't really say too much about it. But one of the things that she was really emphatic about is that it's such an epic movie. And it's very emotional. Like, even for her, like, being on set, even after they wrapped.
Well, yeah, what's her name? Was it Kerry Russell?
Yeah.
She was crying on the stupid thing. So
yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's nice to see that this movie is actually affecting the actors emotionally.
Yeah.
So exactly. That gives me hope for the movie.
It does. And, she's actually excited. She recently said also, it wasn't on Tonight Show, but she recently said that she was excited to actually being able to be with John Boyega again, because throughout The Last Jedi, she really didn't have many scenes with him.
That's true. In The Force Awakens, they were together all the time. It was like they were going on this adventure together, and it was like, Yeah, you didn't really get that in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, so now that they're back, and of course Oscar Isaac is with them, so like we've always kind of said before, once we saw the trailer, that she's really excited that they're going on this big adventure together.
Yeah.
So the band's all there and everything, and then she just really just said that. And there's some other things I want to say, but I'm going to save that a little bit later for our Duel of the Fates. But yeah, it's really cool to see how happy she is about this particular film and the direction that it's gone. And she did confirm that, like, yeah, you're definitely going to know, about the whole Rey parent situation.
Well, that's good.
And of course, I'm leaving stuff with Kylo. So
of course. Well, and it's a nice contrast too, because as Mark Hamill's been doing press for Child's Play, which by the way was incredible.
Oh, you saw it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, when I was working in Grand Rapids, we ended up seeing like a movie every night. And yeah, Child's Play was the first one, and it was like there's still things about the original that are unbeatable, but I have to say, man, I mean, there's some things that I liked about this better, actually.
Yeah, I heard this actually is like one of the few movies that actually got it right.
And it was creepy. I mean, it was legitimately creepy and chilling in some scenes.
Sweet.
But while Mark Hamill was doing the press for that, he was talking, of course, people are going to ask him about Star Wars, and he kind of doesn't seem as enthusiastic. I mean, he's enthusiastic about the movie itself, but I think The Last Jedi left such a bad taste in his mouth that he doesn't really like where the character of Luke Skywalker ended up going, that he's just kind of over Star Wars now. I mean, he'll still talk about it with enthusiasm about all the other stuff, but I think his involvement in it, he's just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of glad because Luke Skywalker is not where I wanted him to be. I'm kind of glad that I'm done with this.
Well, you know what? And I've kind of heard that I've heard that too, but I heard he was kind of like joking about it almost. It wasn't necessarily like a serious thing. I don't know, because I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to go either way because like I said, and it could be too that, his enthusiasm for the franchise is there. It's just he didn't like where his character was going, so he's got mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, so and that makes me wonder, like, okay, well, at 9, Rise of Skywalker, like, did they fix that? I mean, not fix it in the sense of,
well, not really, because
you can't recon, but I mean,
dead. I mean, unless which they didn't. He confirmed he's a Force ghost. But the thing is that if JJ had resurrected him somehow, or made it to where, hey, when you saw that, he wasn't dying, he was just, I don't know.
Yeah,
they could have made up a reason though why.
Yeah, honestly, what would really been cool is if Luke decided, since he disconnected himself with the Force, that he went the opposite way and just went all the way into the Force. Almost kind of like, okay, well, let me just see.
Yeah, almost like becoming one with it, but then coming back or something. And then who knows? JJ could be doing this whole misdirection thing.
And that would be that would be the ultimate show of power. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no one in the world you've ever seen do that.
No.
Not even Yoda. So that would be sweet.
Yep. All right. What about you guys? You hear Daisy Ridley talking about how emotional and, just how great everything is. And, everybody seems to be showing some enthusiasm for this movie. But do you guys think that, this is just a typical press thing, or is this making you guys more excited to see this? Let us know at Head to Head SW, Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, email. You guys can talk to us any way you want. All right, what do we got now? Ooh.
Yeah.
What is something from the entire saga?
Yeah. So what is something from the entire saga that you want answered in Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that they're pretty much going to answer. I mean, you know what? Snoke. I want to know who Snoke was.
Okay.
That's definitely something. And even though, that's more of a recent thing, I still think it's one of the biggest gaping holes of the entire saga. The whole Darth Plagueis storyline, I'd like to see that make an appearance and be somewhat, not necessarily resolved, because it wasn't like it wasn't resolved, but it was something that the Emperor brought up, and I'd like to see it expounded upon. Like, okay, he learned to cheat death, great. I don't think that was an isolated incident. I think that actually bears directly on Anakin. I think it directly bears on the whole saga. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see that bookended, I guess would probably be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I really want to, that's one of the main things I really want to see, of course, Snoke, but I really want to hear about Plagueis, and more so, like, especially with the Emperor coming back. We don't know what form yet, but I would really just love to see how Kylo was manipulated, and
like what turned him?
Yeah, what turned him in the first place. And then,
well, I mean, didn't they allude to the fact that when Luke tried to kill him, that was sort of a thing? But then again, the seed was planted at that point, though. Yeah,
it was already planted, and then, of course, Luke saw darkness in him, so
all right.
He kept trying to kill us. I mean, we kind of know, but it's like,
yeah, like
how did that get there?
Well, how did that get there? Right.
And then the other is, I really would love to like kind of hear about Palpatine creating Vader or creating Anakin.
Yeah. Well, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? That whole creation of light.
Well, and that's what I meant partially by the whole Plagueis thing. Yeah. It's like, because obviously, he taught Palpatine, so then Palpatine in turn used it. But I'd like to see, because remember too, it's interesting when you had this and you put this in, because you could easily say, what do you want, answered in any form? Could be the novels, it could be the comics, but you're specifically saying in the movie.
Yeah.
And so these are things that, you want to see, like Snoke's origin. You could do that in a book.
Yeah.
I mean, you really could. And it would be almost as satisfying. But I mean, I think that the important thing, though, is that these things that you can see, like, for instance, I want to know where Snoke came from. I want to know who he really is. Now, you could put that in the movie and then expand the whole story in a book.
Yeah.
But just give me the actual answer.
Just give me a little background on basics.
Yeah, like even if it's a 2-sentence thing, or almost kind of like how Han Solo, like, sort of encapsulated everything that Luke was.
Yeah. Like,
why he wasn't basically in that part of the film.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he ran away. He was hiding, his failure and all that. And I mean, he just basically gave us a little bit of a narrative.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, I would love to know about, because there's a lot to Snoke, because, and that's one of the biggest things that J.J. Abrams said, this is going to be the end of the Sith and the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. And we still got that out there, too.
So I'm like, okay, well...
And nobody's really latched onto that.
Yeah, technically there aren't any Sith. Kylo isn't a Sith.
Well, yeah.
It was Snoke. So as far as we know.
No, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, that's what I mean. Like, those are the questions I'm kind of like, all right, how's this really working? But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what about you guys? Is there something from the entire saga that you're just dying to be answered in the Rise of Skywalker? Not just, like I said, not just the books or the comics or, any of the other medium, or even a Disney Plus series. I mean, something in the Rise of Skywalker. What is it in the Rise of Skywalker that you want answered that maybe was covered from the entire saga? Let us know at HeadToHeadSW on Facebook and Twitter. And now,
yes,
we're going to wrap up our drinks. We're going to put down the bottle.
Yes.
I think we've... and now we're going to go to another segment that we like. We're going to fight a little bit.
Yeah, that's what happens after you drink.
And exactly. After the bar comes the brawl. What do we got?
We have Duel of the Fates. All right. So this week I have, and I probably should have clarified this a little bit more, but
maybe I can.
Who do you think in Rise of Skywalker would be the better swordsman?
I guess that is. I guess that does require clarification.
Yeah, it does require just a little bit. In the Rise of Skywalker, so by Rise of Skywalker, who do you think would be the better swordsman? Kylo Ren or Rey?
Yeah, it's still kind of tough though, because on one hand, Kylo Ren's been training for years. He was trained directly by Luke. He is a grandson of the Force? Yeah. So, this guy's got a lot going for him. Plus, don't forget, the dark side actually fuels you. And like a lot of the lightsaber techniques, if they have dark side fueling them, can be pretty formidable. Now, on the other hand, you have Rey, who by the time of the Rise of Skywalker, she's not at her full potential yet, but she's very close. Mm-hmm. So I think in order to answer this intelligently and logically, you would need to know, is Kylo at his full potential or not? Now, one could argue that he is, simply because, what's there left really for him to learn? He's been under Luke, he's been under Snoke. Mm-hmm. Sure, there might be a little ways he can go, and maybe he almost becomes a little bit like Vader, where he never really realizes his full potential simply because of circumstances.
Okay.
But what we're probably looking at here is like visually and just everything in the movie, like who's really going to have the upper hand. The other problem with this too is that it also depends on where the light and the dark are in the movie. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I still had to go with Kylo, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Because Kylo learned classically. He learned the techniques. Like Rey, granted, she does have the Jedi texts, mm-hmm. and that could go a long way, definitely. But Kylo was trained by Luke, and then he was trained by Snoke, and he actually learned the ways of both the Jedi and maybe not Sith, but definitely dark side. And I'm sure he studied all like his grandfather's, stuff. So that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win, though.
True.
But if you're just talking about who's like the most skilled lightsaber, I can't honestly see
Rey being the.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, okay, maybe she beats him somehow. Mm-hmm. Maybe she uses some Force stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I can't see an argument where Rey would be the better swordsman.
When I did this question, I had to really look at, some things.
Forums.
Yeah. But, no, I mean, just watching like, okay.
Did you actually like rewatch the battles in the movie? You can't really count Force Awakens though, because she was just kind of like new to it, and she's just wildly swinging, and then of course Kylo's like injured from a bowcaster.
Right. No, I mean, I wasn't talking about so much that, but I mean, I think Rey is going to be the better swordsman, and I think.
Now, do you mean better swordsman, or do you mean she's going to beat him in a duel? Because there is a difference.
True story. No, I mean actually better swordsman. I actually mean like the actual like.
Jeez, after I just got through saying there's no way you're going to try to make the... All right.
It's Doodle's face, man. We haven't argued in a while.
That's true. We've actually been to... It's been like a love fest on the thing.
But no, I think Rey is going to be a better swordsman, and here's why. One, I think that her whole life she's been fighting. She's had that staff.
Well, all right.
Her.
I did not think about that, but that's true. The staff thing is okay. That part's good.
So I think she has that. I think that getting used to a lightsaber. I think her only hiccup is really just getting used to the actual mechanics of the lightsaber.
That's why I'm really surprised she didn't do the double bladed one like Maul.
Well, I mean,
because that's the most like a staff,
True, but I think once again, and the cool thing is, I said I was going to say this, so Daisy really once again talked about the upcoming battle in Episode 9, and between her and Kylo, so we know there's going to be one. Oh, yeah, although we saw from the Vanity Fair thing, but I mean,
well,
you kind of figured it was going to happen anyway.
I
was
going to say, man, I mean, I don't think that really is a surprise to anybody.
True, but I think that
it's nice to hear it confirmed, though.
Yeah, and it's going to be like in this whole Reign situation, so I think that's going to create some interesting dynamics to that. Almost kind of like how the Obi-Wan Jango Fett thing.
Yep.
But I think. Well, first of all, Daisy really brought up the fact that actually JJ changed the style. So instead of remember how George Lucas wanted this lightsabers to be kind of like heavy?
Well, I mean, George Lucas himself changed that for the prequels.
Yeah, but Rian Johnson changed it back in Last Jedi. This time, they actually made him lighter. So that's how JJ wants him to be portrayed. He wants it portrayed more so like the prequels instead of the original trilogy.
I see.
Because if you look at how and that's what I was saying, like I look at the way that they moved them in a sense of style, Kylo had to use a lot of double-handed stuff. Rey, it makes more sense because she's more of a novice, but
well, I mean,
Kylo,
are you saying that, so like in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, they kind of went back to the fighting styles more of the original trilogy? I could see that when I think back to that they did resemble the original trilogy. They were a little bit slower, and
wide sweeping movements.
Yeah, wide sweeping movements.
And Kylo looked very even whenever he used his lightsaber, he looked very sloppy. Like he didn't look like he had, and that's kind of part of his character because he's so unhinged.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like everything is wild about him. And so that's the reason why I feel like Rey would actually be the better swordsman, because I think she has more precision in her movements.
And I mean, there were certain scenes in The Last Jedi where she did demonstrate a little bit more finesse, but I mean, but then again, though, that could just be Kylo's style that catches everybody off guard. Don't forget, we even saw the trailer where he's going up against his, whatever those people were.
Yeah, when they were running through that forest.
Yeah. And he's actually impaling people with his cross guard and stuff. And, he was pulling out some pretty cool moves.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
in The Last Jedi, too, against the guards, the Praetorian guards.
Yeah, and see, with those, that's kind of where I was looking at is that battle. Kylo was kind of cool, but I think Rey was a little bit more. Even in that, I think she was a little bit more skilled in a way. It's just that she wasn't as confident, as strong.
Yeah.
She was just so new to it, but you could see the skill set there. It's just that she didn't have confidence.
Well, like you said, yeah, she was, because, she's always doing like the hand-to-hand combat with the staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she should have just went the whole lightsaber thing and done one of those like.
Oh, the electro blades?
Yeah, those electro blades,
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. And I think that's kind of where. But see now, and that's what I can tell. Like when we saw the trailer for Rise of Skywalker, like when we see her do that whole flip thing. I mean,
yeah, which I guess she was kind of disappointed that fans were, kind of bagging on that a little bit.
Yeah, man, and I think that was actually pretty cool. The fact that it's like, okay, you know what, she's definitely she's owning her powers and abilities, and she's a whole lot more confident. And I think that's what's really going to make the decision between her and Kylo as far as her just trusting her abilities. Whereas before she didn't really trust them. Kylo is too erratic. And I think that's why he's not going to be a great swordsman.
Unless, he changes his whole thing for this too. I mean, it's been a year. He could have calmed down.
Could have.
Who knows? I mean, we don't really know what kind of a leader he's going to be yet. Plus, who knows? His basic coming unglued before everything mixed with the dark side could be a very potent combination. Another dark sider could get him easily. Like, he'd be no match for a Vader or anything like that. But, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what about you guys? Who do you think is the actual better swordsman or lightsaber duelist or whatever? Is it Kylo? Good old unglued, unhinged Kylo?
Emo.
Or is it Rey? Finesse. I'd give a last name, but we don't know yet.
Exactly.
Rey. Let us know at Head-to-Head SW, or, leave in the comments. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube or whatever, leave it in the comments section. We always love to. A couple of you guys have been doing that, actually. You've been leaving these really cool, very long, I might add, comments in the comments section on our YouTube podcasts, and they've actually been pretty interesting. Like, I'll read through these, and I know, Daryl, you will too sometimes, and I'm just like, wow, I mean, it actually makes me think about certain things, you know, and it's like a different perspective that even as long as I've been a Star Wars fan, I never really looked at it that way before. You know, sometimes I'll read them, and in all honesty, I'm like, okay, I don't know. But I have to say, most of the time, you guys really come up with some really cool viewpoints on these things. All right, so we got our next topic. What are we doing?
All right, we have...
As if I don't know.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, this is where we talk about our main topic. The one with the podcast title.
Exactly. So, do you think the prophecy has been fulfilled already, or will it come to pass in Rise of Skywalker?
Well, the first thing I should say, because when I was thinking about this, which I usually don't think about these things too much, but just something that hit me when I was reading the outline when you sent it, is that everybody keeps looking at it like there's this one prophecy and then that's it. And I think that prophecy about the Chosen One coming and bringing balance to the Force, I think it was fulfilled. Now, here's the thing, though, and this is where it gets to be a little tricky. You know, I do think that Anakin was a chosen one, but now ultimately he had the choice, right? Now, a lot of people look at it and say, well, he didn't bring balance to the Force. You know, he betrayed everybody and threw the whole universe out of whack, but he did bring balance when he killed the Emperor. So he came full circle. So that prophecy, I do think, has been fulfilled. Now, you know, who knows? Because in reading, you know, various novels and stuff, you know, they had these Jedi mystics. They had all these people that were, you know, doing nothing but like looking at the future and trying to predict stuff. And one of the things that, you know, they were implying, you know, this even goes back to Legends, but even canon's brought this up occasionally in some of the novels about the Jedi, about how they would try to, you know, deal with all these prophecies and stuff like that. Even the Rogue One novel kind of touched on it, you know, a little bit with Chirrut Îmwe and how, you know, they were like guardians of the wills or something. It's like basically what they're saying is that there's a lot of different prophecies about different things. And it's a little bit unclear whether this is a prophecy that, okay, it's fulfilled and it's gone, or are there, okay, Anakin was a chosen one, brings balance to the Force. Force goes out of balance, another chosen one comes, brings balance to the Force. In other words, is it like this one be-all, end-all chosen one, or is it every time the Force is out of balance, there'll be another chosen one? Kind of like a golden child kind of thing. You guys remember that movie? Big points if you do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a very great assessment, and it could be very valid, honestly.
Well, the problem is we don't know because, you know, I don't even remember if that's anything that Lucas addressed.
Well, I think that,
it's his stupid prophecy.
True, but I think you know, you can look at things, because what made me think about it was J.J. Abrams wrapping up and tying everything together in 9. So it's kind of like, okay, with the Emperor coming back, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like in whatever form.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like, look, if that was supposed to bring balance to the Force, it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, though. Then now what?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, was it not fulfilled, or was it that we thought that, yeah, this guy did come and bring balance to the Force, but maybe he was not the chosen one, and maybe that wasn't the... Now, here's what would support the argument that he wasn't, and that the chosen one is yet to come, maybe like Rey.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with it,
you know, like
too.
if Rey's the chosen one, here's the one situation where Rey would be the chosen one and would be valid, and that is if this bringing balance to the Force is actually going to eliminate the Jedi and the Sith, and maybe all the extremes like the dark and the light, and you just have like kind of a mixture of both. That would be the true balance for all time.
And that's what I was exactly what you read my mind. You might actually be a Jedi.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, I mean, you actually read my mind, because that's actually where I was going with everything, is that, you know, if Rey is that one, because...
Well, again, it just depends on, you know, how they want to read this whole thing. And it really depends. honestly, Lucas really, even though this stuff is in the hands of like other creators now and stuff like that, it's all based on Lucas's lore pretty much. And it's based on his story and, what he envisioned. So he would really be the one, honestly, that even though it's moved on past him, he's really the only one qualified to give the true answer.
True.
At least for his intent. I mean, it may, because, anybody that's in control. But, you could say that about fan fiction, too. In fact, that's basically what some of the critics of where, Star Wars has gone. It's like Disney is like professional fan fiction gone wrong. And it's kind of like, but, these are the same people that were whining that Lucas was ruining their childhood. So it's like, you guys can't have it both ways.
Yeah, you can't please everybody. And of course, everybody.
No, you have to bring balance.
Yeah, exactly. So,
so, from that standpoint, I think it's got to be like maybe, well, I guess there are third options too, but of everything that we know, either, Anakin really was the chosen one for that imbalance, and then everything's cool for a while, and then when it gets out of balance again, another chosen one comes out whenever the, darkness rises, light rises to meet it, raises somebody up. Okay, that's one extremely valid. This could be it. However, the other side is that, maybe maybe this is like the real bringing balance, because if you eliminate the two sides and you get rid of the Jedi and the Sith, you can't really get much more balance than that.
Exactly. And I think that's what I've been thinking about the whole time, is just the whole balance of the Force. Because that's also, I thought it was going to be the title, actually. Because
I think wasn't that one of the ones that were really heavily rumored?
Yeah, that's when I even thought about, and I was just like, because that would just make sense to me. Is that like,
it would make sense though, because you need to have an R. You have Revenge of the Sith. You have Return of the Jedi. Now you have Rise of Skywalker. It always has to begin with an R. Third movie in Star Wars sagas always had to begin with an R.
Never thought about that, but that's true.
Even the standalones, Rogue One.
So, that's what I think. I think that I don't think the prophecy has been completely fulfilled. I think that's what's on the way.
Well, and the better question, too, is like, there's a lot of evidence that's really pointing to the fact that Skywalker is like this whole new categorization of Force users.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see, where that goes, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's going to be, let's just say that I think that we're all really anticipating this movie quite heavily because of it reaching the climax of this whole saga. And, we're going to get a lot of questions finally answered. Because that's, I think, one of the things that drives everybody nuts is that, you go, okay, great, this next movie is going to come out, it's going to answer questions. It might answer a few, but it usually brings up more questions than it answers that are usually more frustrating than the questions that were asked before. So it's like, could you just wrap everything up? Let us have a Return of the Jedi kind of moment.
Yep.
Where everything's tied up in a neat little bow and we can go on with our lives and enjoy all the one-offs and, not...
New sagas.
Not have this nagging thing. Like, because the worst thing that I think could happen is if we actually feel like we didn't have proper closure.
Right.
Especially when you're closing out the whole saga.
Well, that's how a lot of people felt about the end of Game of Thrones. People who saw the end of Game of Thrones, they really felt like it should have ended a different way. They didn't care for the ending. And they're like, man, they felt like it was rushed, which I kind of agree with. I can see where I like the ending, but I also can see where they would, why they would say that.
That's because they read the books.
But then also, I think that...
Of course, the books ended after season 6, I think.
Yeah, but I also think with Benioff and Weiss, they had the Star Wars thing that they had to get moving on too.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, all right, we can't really...
Well, I don't know. And again, there's going to be more books written, and we'll see if he actually keeps them the way that the show went. But, and that's why I hope that when it comes to the Benioff and Weiss trilogy, that it doesn't have these same frustrations that we've experienced with this. I don't think it will, but you got to ask the question.
Yeah, well, fortunately with their trilogy, you had nothing to base it on. There's no books, there's no nothing. It's just
right, but it could still have the same effect though. Because if you think about it, I mean, granted, yeah, you've got like Luke Skywalker and stuff like that, but you're dealing with a lot of these, like the Who's Rey's parents. That really doesn't have anything to do with anything that came before it. That's a brand new frustration that came out with this trilogy that they've handled really badly. Of course, we could actually watch in Rise of Skywalker and go, man, it was so brilliant that these guys like held off this information till this movie. That could be, but, it was kind of like...
But they're only really basing that based on the original trilogy, though.
Well, I know, like, is it, is this person like, Yaddle's great-great-granddaughter or something?
I mean, I'm guaranteeing, like, if this trilogy came out, like, if there was no original trilogy and this was just the first Star Wars, no one would care. Because you don't have anything to base it on, but everybody's basing it off the original trilogy. Because
right. Is it Palpatine's granddaughter?
No one cared about who Luke's, parents, were.
Yeah, it's true.
It wasn't until Empire Strikes Back it was like, whoa, that changed the game. So now everybody's wondering, okay, well, this must be the new Luke.
No, not necessarily, because if you remember, it's not that we didn't care. We did care, but we got or at least we thought we did. Oh, your mother died at childbirth and your father basically was killed by this guy named Darth Vader.
Yeah. But I mean,
it was answered though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's why there wasn't any unopened thing and they weren't making such a big deal about it.
Yeah.
And then give you some cheesy, nothing answer. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's that's a new thing that really, other than the speculation part, doesn't have much to do with the original trilogy, just not handling it very well.
Yeah. That's the point. Yeah.
True. So, I mean, that I'm hoping happens. But I think that, that's basically what we can. What about you guys with the prophecy thing? Do you guys think that it's already been fulfilled and then maybe a chosen one kind of pops up if, when the force is out of balance? Or was the prophecy never really fulfilled and the Jedi all got it wrong? And now it's about to be truly fulfilled in the Rise of Skywalker. Let us know. Or about any of these other things we've been, pretty much sniping about. So now that we've had all this crazy chaos, it's time to clear your mind. That's right. We always say clear your mind of questions, but this is the question and answer segment of our show, which is actually irony at its best, and I never even thought about it until just now. So with that in mind, what is our first question? And who is it from?
First question comes from Uriah Bonet.
Yeah, I think so.
With the Emperor coming back, does that mean Snoke is really gone?
I think the fact that Snoke was cut in half means he's really gone. But then again, though, you had the Darth Maul thing.
Yeah. Yep. Indeed.
You kind of think that's the final thing. And then all of a sudden, Spider Maul comes along.
Right.
And then then he becomes
this,
he gets his normal legs back, like these normal robotic legs. And then, now he's just this viable character that's living on until just before the original trilogy. So I honestly don't think he's coming back because I think that his story has been told as far as what it needs to be. I don't necessarily think that JJ would have killed him off if he had done the Last Jedi.
Yeah, I think with the Emperor coming back, I think you have to get rid of Snoke because then, unless the Emperor, once again, unless the Emperor doesn't have such a big role, but the way they're portraying it, he has to.
Well,
and you can't bring somebody like that back and just be like, he's here, and then take him away.
But exactly. The way that he showed up at the celebration too.
Everything, and then roll it again. It's just he really wants you to know I'm back, basically.
Yeah, this is basically hey, in case you didn't catch that laugh, it's me.
Right.
But here's the thing, though, that I find kind of funny about that whole thing is that you almost have to know who Snoke was to really know what kind of a role he could play in the right. Because a lot of people point that out all the time. They say, well, a Palpatine coming back, you can't have Snoke. Well, that's not necessarily true because you can make that argument about Vader. Vader is pretty powerful too. Now, granted, he was Palpatine's apprentice, but the point is, if you just look at it oh, you had this super powerful villain, there's no room for somebody else.
Well, I just think there's no room because then you have three villains. You have Kylo, Snoke, and the Emperor. That's a bit much.
Don't forget that fourth guy, pride or whatever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's like don't get me wrong, he's probably a very powerful Imperial officer.
But
I mean, I'm just talking about like
Grand Moff Tarkin, man, was like kind of the guy in A New Hope.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, but that's on a different front. Like, you can deal with him with just like the regular rebellion guys, but we're talking about like people who have these amazing abilities that you can't just be Han Solo walking up to the Emperor. You know, you gotta you gotta bring something to the table. So I'm thinking like, okay, you got Kylo Ren and you got Snoke plus the Emperor.
But again, you said it yourself though. It depends on what role the Emperor is actually playing.
Right, like,
and it also depends on who Snoke was. Snoke could have been like sort of like the new Vader to Palpatine for all we know.
Right.
It's more powerful. I mean, we don't know. And that's the problem with trying to answer these questions. Like I said, that's why I made the joke in the beginning. I think the fact that he was cut in half says more about him being gone than the Emperor coming back. That's why I actually think that the question's kind of funny, because it's like, I don't necessarily think the Emperor coming back means Snoke's gone more than him being cut in half and just his tongue all hanging out at the bottom of the throne room.
Yeah, I mean, because, if the Emperor's coming back, if he's not in full, like, human form, you know, I mean, he still came back in a way.
Yeah.
So it's...
Well, here's the thing.
That's just almost like now final in Star Wars.
I could buy this. First of all, the Palpatine thing I can buy if he came back in full human form, simply because Plagueis taught him how to cheat death.
All right.
He had time to enact that as he's falling down a shaft. Now, depending on how that whole thing works, I don't know. If, say, Snoke was taught by Palpatine, and Palpatine taught him how to cheat death, I don't know if he would have time to say the weird phrase or whatever, however that happens.
Whatever that incarnation from Child's Play.
Right. Like, I don't know if you can do that as you're being sawed in half by a lightsaber. Hey, who knows? The thing is, though, I think more to your point, which is more the pragmatic, practical point, is that you'd have, like, basically the problem of a lot of the Batman movies, you know, like the Joel Schumacher stuff. You'd have too many villains. You can't possibly concentrate on all these people's storylines.
Right.
And do justice to the hero storylines.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know. I think that we can safely say that Snoke is gone, but who knows? What do we got next?
Next one's a really good question. Shannon Abbey, do you think we will ever find out how powerful Leia really is? Yeah,
I mean, I think they were alluding to that in the novel, even the novel Bloodline. They, you know, she would use the one thing that they sort of kept from the whole Legends thing is that Leia uses the more intuitive powers of the Jedi. She uses it more for diplomacy and politics. So a little bit more of like sensing fear or sensing somebody lying.
Right.
Or, you know, perhaps like doing a little bit of the Jedi mind trick thing, or, you know, just like little stuff like that. She uses it more like kind of enhanced intuition, more than what you would say is a traditional Force type of a thing, like a telekinesis or anything like that. But I do think that because we found a little bit of that in Bloodline, and now we actually have her on film using the Force in The Last Jedi, I think now subsequent novels will start to... And, hey, we don't even know what we're going to see of her in The Rise of Skywalker either.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, Leia has always been kind of a mystery to me because... You know, because we know that she and Luke are brother and sister, and their bond was, you know, established more so in the Empire, you know, when they were able to communicate to each other through the Force. But since then, you know, I'm sure Luke, well, we all know Luke kind of trained her and kind of taught her how to do some things.
Yeah.
I just don't, because of her connection to the Force, how strong is she really? Like, in the sense of she needed to really fire up a lightsaber. I mean, I know they covered it in books and legends and stuff.
Yeah.
She's done it before.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I think you're going to see more of that now in the actual canon books now, because they've established these things. They established some of it in Bloodline where we got those same traditional things. Now, yes, in the Legends books, occasionally she did have to do a lightsaber duel. They even covered in the Timothy Zahn thing that she would train with Luke with a lightsaber in the more combat type style things, but not necessarily use them.
Right.
But she would keep up with them.
Yeah, and just the fact that, we saw her in Last Jedi being able to, sustain herself in space and pull herself
Yeah, well,
that's
what I'm saying. Because we've seen that, and because they actually said, hey, because remember, when she passed away, she had already completed filming those scenes. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like they knew she was going to die or anything like that. Like, hey, we better squeeze this in. Like she had some terminal disease or something. So, and remember that she was supposed to have a very prominent role.
Yeah, 9 was supposed to be really
that was going to be her movie.
Yeah.
So I think that they were setting something up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is just the beginning. Now you're going to see even more Force stuff from her. Mm-hmm. Well, now that they can't really do that, I think you're going to start to see it now pop up in novels and comics and maybe even an animated series or something.
All right.
So we'll have to see. But, let us know what you guys think. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our show.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, be sure to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at Eric Vansel Media, and also, hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook and Twitter. Give our Facebook page a like and, follow us. Subscribe to our podcast. We want to see you guys and hear from you guys, every week. So, definitely subscribe to our podcast. And of course, if we put some Amazon affiliate links in the show notes, sure to click on them. If these are things that you're going to buy anyway, we try to find products that might be of interest to you and that relate to Star Wars and that wonderful saga we all love. And, you guys can help support our podcast in the meantime. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.